We are also following developing news from Pfizer on its coronavirus vaccine. This morning, Pfizer BioNTech announced that it has submitted trial results to the FDA on participants ages 5 to 11. Nearly 2,300 children were involved. And according to the press release, the results showed a, quote, favorable safety profile. This development comes as children return to classrooms nationwide with COVID safety measures in place. So here to discuss this is Dr. William Schaffner. He's a professor of infectious diseases at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. So, doctor, the study looked at kids ages 5 to 11. What are the results?
Well, Anne-Marie, they're really very encouraging. First of all, as we work down the age range, we're looking at the doses. And so this required only 1/3 of the dose that adolescents and young adults required. That's good. And the antibody responses were just as good as in their older counterparts. And the safety profile was what you would expect. Some sore arms, but nothing much more than that. So that's very promising. We trust the Food and Drug Administration will act with reasonable thoroughness and promptness. And it might well be that we can start vaccinating 5 through 11-year-olds sometime this fall already. That would be great. You know, it's 12 and up at the present time. There's still a lot of 12 and ups that have to be vaccinated, but we're eager to move down to the younger kids also.
So, Doctor, the trial included fewer than 3,000 children. Is this a typical sample size for this kind of study?
It is, Vlad, because we're learning already from the millions upon millions of doses that have been given already to adults, young adults and adolescents. And we can do what's called an immunobridging study. The FDA will allow younger children to have a licensed or emergency use authorization when their immune responses, those antibodies that we measure in the bloodstream, are comparable to what older persons did, and those older persons were protected. So we infer that there will be protection for the youngsters also.
How does this compare to the adult vaccine trials, though?
Well, the adult vaccine trials were first out of the box. So those were big 20,000 studies to see whether the vaccine was safe and effective. That's been well established. With many, many other vaccines, we've used this same process. Once we've established effectiveness and had a reasonable correlate with those antibody amounts in the bloodstream, we can then use the vaccine in other populations comparably, but we don't have to do those huge studies, which will take years. We can do that in smaller studies. And that's what was done here. I expect the FDA is going to approve this.
And what about kids who have natural immunity, perhaps those who have already been infected?
This has been well established, Vad, for everybody. If you have natural immunity, you will have some protection, but it's not as good as the protection you get from the vaccine. The vaccine makes much more antibody, which has two advantages. Protection should be more prolonged, and you get better protection against variants. So whether or not you've had the disease or the infection itself, you should still get vaccinated.
Okay, doctor, here's the counter argument, though, that you're going to hear. According to a Gallup poll, the majority of parents with kids under 12 would like to get their child vaccinated. But when we look at the cases, children make up 27% of reported COVID cases for the week ending in September 23rd. And according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, it's a fraction of a percent of kids that actually die from COVID. But by and large, when it comes to COVID and kids, they experience a mild form of the virus. So then what's the urgency to vaccinate them?
Well, Anne-Marie, let's you and I visit some parents whose children have died of COVID. I think you'll get a different opinion. Even though they're less common, it's 100% in that child and in that family. And furthermore, even with mild infection, you can get long COVID symptoms that continue for months later. Benjamin Franklin had it right. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
So, Doctor, walk us through the timeline. When do you expect a decision from the FDA and the CDC?
Well, Vlad, I would expect it in the next, I would say, month to 6 weeks. It takes the FDA a little bit of time to thoroughly review these data, to constantly query the company if they have any questions, and then it will go to the FDA's committee and to the CDC's committee. But those committees will work very, very promptly once the FDA has done its review.
And you know, for parents who are still kind of on the fence about this, how concerned should parents be about COVID when they compare it to, I don't know, other common childhood illnesses like the flu or RSV?
Sure. Those are other respiratory viruses that are serious. RSV, for which we do not yet have a vaccine, flu, for which we do, and we're mindful of the fact that we're right now starting flu vaccination season. Let me make sure that everybody understands the recommendations there. If you're 6 months and older, let's get that flu shot. You know, children die of influenza each year. They can also die of COVID. We have vaccines that can prevent both of these illnesses. We should use both of these vaccines to the max.
All right, Dr. William Schaffner, thank you very much.